From the Dallas On Air studios in beautiful Dallas, Texas, this is Fulfillment right here on DallasOnAir.com. And now here's your host, the Vegabomber, PJ Dunn, and the film samurai, Carlos Salinas.
All right, welcome everybody to the show. Can you believe it's season 2, episode 17?
17.
Isn't that ridiculous?
I know. It's like, where does the time go?
Where does the time go?
It's insane, man. It's just time's flying.
Yeah, it's completely nutty. Well, let me congratulate and bring some people on and let folks know, if you're watching Fulfillment for the first time today, this is a show all about movies, where we talk about the scripts, the actors, the artwork, even the collectibles. That's how much we love movies. So if you love movies to that degree, then you're watching the right show. So first, let me introduce the usual suspects and my cast of characters here with me today. First off, the right-hand man, the left-hand man, not the side kick, the front kick, and the back kick, Carlos Salinas.
All right. At Film Samurai.
The Film Samurai also. That's
watch
right.
Movies, nothing but movies. A few TV shows.
And that big voice behind the camera that you'll see from time to time, it is Kazak.
Greetings and salutations, campers. Welcome to DallasOnAir.com.
And now, this featured guest today, his name, well, first let me tell you where you can find him hanging out at. You can find him hanging out at Keith's Comics because he works there. But we have with us today, Horror Mike.
How's it going, guys? Yeah, thank you for having me on today. I love talking movies, and as my name implies, huge into romance movies, right? Nah,
Love stories? You're just coated in blood.
Small indie film.
Name's ironic. Absolutely love this genre. This is mainly the way I always start when I'm looking through my Netflix queue. Is like, all right, let me start the horror genre. So definitely happy to always talk about them.
That's right. Horror Mike, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, you know he is here. He's back, actually, by popular demand. We had him last year. So if you watched the last couple episodes before we got to Halloween last year, you saw him then. But to not make it any more interesting to you, but we're going to make it more interesting for you, we're going to talk about horror again in September, leading up in October, because this is the best time to do that. So as we jump into it, we're going to talk about today. Here's how we're going to break it down. Last year, we looked at the best horror films, and then we looked at it as the best performances, perhaps maybe, in some horror films or directors. Today, we're going to talk about those hidden gems. These are films, horror films, that maybe they didn't get a lot of pub, but for some reason, when you did sit down and you finally did watch it on whichever portal you watch it on, you realize, you know what, this was actually surprisingly pretty good. So with that, I'm going to ask just one simple question before we jump into that topic today. In y'all's mind, what really makes for a good horror film?
The quality of the film, for one thing. If it's a film that's a cut above the usual, and I hate to kind of be cliche about horror films, that a lot of them are low budget, pretty bad. The scripts are terrible. The acting is awful. But these are films that are like very well acted, performed, shot beautifully. They're more thoughtful with characterization, and the horror is more effective in my mind. Those kind of films work for me. I love them.
Horror Mike, what do you think?
Man, I can't disagree with anything Carlos just said. I want to add on there a good horror movie, and there's not many that get around this, really has to build on tension. If you can build tension and suspense, if you can master those keys, you can get around a lot of elements of those films. Because, if a movie doesn't have good characterization, there's many where the characters don't even matter, but they were able to just build it. You cut it with a knife. It's so palatable. I probably mispronounced that, but you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
And that's what I would say is my key hallmark for a good movie. If I don't care about the tension, or if I'm not in suspense a little bit, I usually check out.
Boring horror movies are terrible.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's the quickest checkout.
Okay, Zach, what do you think?
I'm going to disagree with Film Samurai a little bit. Because
What?
Because I'm going to go...
And now, the SmackDown.
No, because I'm going to go for the low budget. I want that yourself. I want that brutal shit. I want it to disturb me. I want it to disturb me, and it can be, high profile. It can be, mind twisting, but it can also be, just gore on the floor, man. It's got to be, I think, on some level. Entirely out of the question.
Out of what question?
It should take you out of yourself. It should take it should take you out of yourself with fear, like with fear or revulsion or
Yes.
just it should catch into you. It should dig into you deep. And it doesn't. And I don't think the budget matters. I don't think quality matters. I think it just matters if it hits you right. I mean, whether it's done so badly it's perfect, or if it's done well and hits you right. It's just a matter of. I think it's just a difference in taste. Because my threshold's going to go a lot lower for a horror film that I enjoy.
Oh yeah, I know a lot of people that that's all they watch is those low budget terrible horror movies, and they love it, and that's fine. I God bless you. I love watch as many as you want.
Yep,
they're just not for me.
Gotcha.
And
me too. I'm right there with you, Film Samurai. I cannot waste my time watching dumb, stupid movies just because somebody else thinks it could be cool. Well, that's not me either. So I'm with you on that. So I'm going to be the ogre with you on that if that has to be the case. But at the same time, I will say, but those movies can sometimes be fun. So I get that too.
Exactly. Right?
You want to be entertained. Yeah. The Joe Bob drive-in type stuff.
And so I guess what I would add to that is just simply this. I would say I like what Film Samurai said. I like what Horror Mike said. And I also like what Kazak said. So the only thing that I can add to it is probably this, because I don't want to regurgitate exactly what they said. To me, a great horror film understands sound design as well as the cinematography.
Yes.
Because sometimes what freaks you out is what you hear, not necessarily what you see. Way before you see the monster. So the fact that the particular person is sitting there and all of a sudden you hear this creak, it freaks you out just in your head imagining. So I think the sound stage, the way it's designed in a movie, is just as important as the visuals when you're talking about horror films, because it starts your mind to working.
Babadook is a good example of that.
Perfect example. Yes. Babadook is it.
Yep.
Yes, sir. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and jump into our first segment of the day. This is where we get to find out what we have just seen recently. So we've all seen something in the last couple of times since we were here last. So we'll start with the Film Samurai. What have you seen?
All right. This is what I just seen and Netflix. It's called Enola Holmes. This is
not Enola Gay.
No.
Okay.
And it doesn't take a Sherlock to figure out Enola is an anagram for alone. And they kind of play with a little bit of that in the film.
Love it.
Enola Holmes is directed by Harry Bradbeer. Stars Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things. Henry Cavill, however you want to pronounce it. Sam Claflin and Helena Bonham Carter. This movie was very entertaining. And this is what I like about the good Netflix films. A lot of Netflix films, originals, are pretty basic, pretty bland,
pretty pedestrian.
This was a fun watch. The writing is very clever. If you're a Sherlock Holmes fan, the character Sherlock Holmes in this film, he's not in it that much. It's really not his point of view. It's mostly point of view is his young sister Enola.
Okay.
And I don't know if this is the first time this character has ever appeared in film or book. I didn't know Sherlock Holmes had a younger.
She's a young
sister.
Now this I do know. Cause I actually
did you?
We sell some of these books. It's a young adult character.
Okay.
It was like a series of young adult novels about like 6 or so years ago.
Okay.
There was it wasn't surprising, only 4 or 5 of them.
I didn't know if it was created for this film or not, but apparently, okay. So it's a character. The mystery is her mother disappears, and she takes it upon herself to find out what happened to her mother. And so she takes off on this adventure, basically. And there's running jokes throughout the movie. It's very comedic. It does this Fleabag thing where she addresses the camera and breaks the third wall. But it's entertaining. It's fun. She's a very expressive young actress, and I think she's really going to mature into a great adult actress. Millie Bobby Brown, I'm talking about. But all in all, I had a great time with it. It was a lot of fun. It's not a long movie, so you're not sitting there bored out of your skull. It moves very quickly. It's fast paced, and I dug it a lot, man. I'd say it's one of those movies fun for the whole family, like adults, kids, anybody can watch it and be entertained by it. I thought.
Okay.
So yeah,
it was on my radar for sure. It was on my radar for sure. I'm one of those Sherlock Holmes fans. I've always loved the character,
if you
Robin
like
Hood,
the mystery and solving mystery and finding clues, it has it all. It's all in there. Yeah.
Is it kind of reminiscent of the old Hardy Boys, Nancy Drew mysteries back in the
Sort
70s.
of, yeah.
But not so
it's-
much that
yeah.
the family could watch it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Horror Mike, what have you seen?
Now, I've weirdly enough, even though I'm horror Mike, I've been finding myself going through the horror genres. Like, well, seen these. Now to go to my second is documentaries. So I usually enjoy true crime or historical documentaries.
That's where you and I are right
crime.
there.
Exactly. So I watched because I've always been aware of the event, but I watched the Challenger, the Final Flight Netflix documentary series.
Okay.
I've always been aware, kind of peripherally, because it was a little bit before my time. And it was a powerful documentary because I wasn't aware of the thing that the documentary does so well. It discusses the lead up to the event itself and the aftermath of the Challenger tragedy.
Yeah.
And I was always aware of it. It's probably how kids born in the last 5 or 6 years are aware of 9/11. They are very clear as a tragedy, but to be alive, to be there is different.
I heard it. I still remember that day. I heard the sonic boom.
Yep.
Yeah.
We saw it too in
Yeah,
school.
I saw that in school.
And the Challenger, because for my generation was the Columbia, I believe. And I was like, that would be my point of reference. But now I get it. And especially, I didn't know most of the crew. There's one poor guy who was bounced around from multiple space. He kept like, oh, this one's filled. You got to go to this one. This one. And poor guy ended up on the Challenger. He just like, they were like, oh, this one filled. Oh, we lost space. It's so, I think what makes it powerful, and I want to say, I recommend it to everyone, but make sure you had a good day because you really feel for these poor families.
It's sobering.
And it's hard. And I know we're talking about movies that I recommend. I recommend it. It's an amazing historical piece. I think everyone should see it.
Is it it's all contained in one film, or is it a series?
It's 3 episodes, I believe. 3 to 4 episodes. And hour episodes. It's powerful stuff, especially when they interview the people. And many people, they actually showed the footage of it when it happened, didn't know what happened. They were just like, what is that right? And I remember mine with the Columbia, I believe it was. Same thing. We were as kids watching that. So I think that's something, it's very important. That's why I've always said documentaries are very important because they give us a timestamp, almost like a time capsule of an event and people's, the area around the event. So it was powerful. I loved it. As much as you can love something so kind of tragedy, but it was very important to me learning people's experience during that time. So I heavily recommend it. I could two thumbs away.
Yeah, it was one of those formative, at our age, it was one of those formative events that really just kind of hit us all. I remember going to Houston to go take a tour of the NASA Space Center, and they had they had a display on it. I don't know if they go into this at all in the series, but Big Bird was almost on that shot. Was almost on that flight.
They in fact did. That's what led to them. They even touch on that. That's what led to them. They thought about getting the actor and puppet for Big Bird, and then they said, "Well, wait a minute, we can't figure out how to get the puppet there." But it kind of they show their thought process. It goes very in depth with the 4 episodes. Their thought process of getting to the teacher, which I didn't know. I all these years have been aware of that. I didn't know it was a teacher on board, and I didn't realize that was the reason why. The kids watch because when I was with the Columbia, man, I'm gonna look it up again. We were watching because I was the big event flight. I don't believe there was a teacher on that one, but this one, that's why she was supposed to be doing. It's sad, man. It's good though. It's good. I can't recommend it enough. It's
good.
2 thumbs up. There are just so many documentary series, and that one got recommended to me based on previous watches, which that's what Netflix excels at, right?
That algorithm.
And 2 thumbs up, man. I'm sadly beginning to see more documentaries are almost kind of scarier than horror movies.
Oh, but hold that thought. We're going to talk about that as well. Zach, what did you see?
All right, so my selection this week was the 2019 film, The Jesus Rolls. This is the I guess kind of follow up to The Big Lebowski. John Turturro takes his character Jesus Quintana, or Jesus Quintana. Sorry, that's how they pronounce it. Out into the world. Basically, he gets out of prison and goes kind of on a weird kind of travel with a partner of his, and it's half like hints of Big Lebowski, but what it really is a remake of a 1974 Gerard Depardieu French film. I can't really recommend it. I mean,
I'm having trouble connecting already. Go ahead.
Well, if John Turturro, Susan Sarandon three-way hits your buttons, go for it. But in other words,
There's boobies in it.
yes, there are. But basically, it's an erotic comedy.
Oh wow!
New
Don't make
erotic
those
comedy.
anymore.
But yeah, it's kind of it's like a weird half French film. It's a weird kind of journey. Basically, Turturro had thought that there was a film in this character, so he borrows the character from the Coen brothers, and you see little hints of it, like the Gypsy Kings actually make an appearance in the film.
Okay.
You see actors that there's a who's who of actors in this film who make appearances: Christopher Walken, Susan Sarandon, just a lot of really great people, kind of doing favors for John Turturro being in this film.
Or blackmailed.
It's pretty much. If you like Lebowski, yeah, but it's not really something I would recommend, like, unless you have really nothing else to do.
Wow.
And like I said, I went for it because Jesus from The Big Lebowski, it's great, but it kind of goes into why he was busted, what he's doing, just what happened to him, and yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, not a recommend, but only for the hardcore Lebowski fans. Basically.
Okay, so all one of you that are still on this is a film you might want. So now to Mike gave me a perfect segue here, because I will tell you I've seen the #1 horror movie ever, and this is the movie called The Social Dilemma on Netflix. The reason why this is horrifying is because it's actually true. So this film, the synopsis is it's talking about how they're actually, it's a real documentary. So you've got the real people who used to work for, Facebook, and who worked for Netflix, all the other folks, YouTube, who designed algorithms to basically tell people, let's build a profile on everyone, and then we can predict pretty much how they're going to behave. So we'll put these particular ads in front of them to push them where we want to push them. And it even went so far as to show how, and these are all very smart people who now, looking back on it, feel like, and you sense this watching the documentary, that they weren't better people about challenging the other side of what this could mean. So they talk about how now fake news, you can create fake news pretty quickly and put it out there, and then people believe it's true because they just don't, some people don't have critical faculties inside their minds to wonder if this is true or not, right? And then they talk about the political elections and how maybe that got involved in the bots and how you can now change what happened. And it brought up real circumstances where people use social media and the things that's being put into their social media to then adjust how they're going to vote, act, become racial or non-racial, become more this or more that, an activist, non-activist. And it's pretty sobering because everything they showed is true and has happened. And so what they're talking about now is creating, or they more recently, something called the Humane Society of Social Media, because we just created social media to say, let's make a ton of money. Facebook captured all this information from everybody, and they talked about that. They said all your information, everything you've ever looked at, it's stored. Yep. And they have it, and they've built a profile around it. And that's why whenever you break something and you just happen to go, dang, I need another watch, and you look one time for a watch somewhere, now watches show up every time, everywhere you go, because they've already built a profile. And they also can tell what you might get into next. It's predictive because they've watched all these algorithms of all these people, because you got 4 billion people that are on Facebook. So here are all these different algorithms built up of a cyber person just like you. So it's almost like Bizarro world in a way. And so then they sit back and they did it. So what they did is they had the guys really talking about it. You get real cuts from real, not just TED Talks, but real meetings that were put together by Congress to talk about, is this really a danger? Is it not a danger? And then they had to prove it one way or the other. But they also intercut it with a story of a family and the acting, and that's really good, where they're just showing how the family won't even sit down at the dinner table without even everybody on there going like, click, and everybody's doing that. And then they show kind of Big Ether, the people sitting back going, okay, they just liked on this. They did it 15 times this week. Therefore, they like this particular thing. Let's make sure that their feed only shows them this. So it talks about how it builds up bias because their algorithm sets it up to where they only send you the stuff you already want to see, which then confirms your biases you already have. So therefore, when you do try to talk to different people who have different perspectives than you, you really can't even hear it because all your feed has been telling you is these guys are bad and what you believe is correct. And here are the arguments you should use whenever you're around these people. So you don't really get the real, like if let's just say CNN puts up something about, I don't know, about the bots and how they can affect the election, right? Well, it'll pull up everything that you already believe and then show you the people who also believe what you believe and put their videos on there. So you're constantly getting the same mindset. So, and I've always seen this as somebody who does what I do. Behavioral science is like, yeah, that's a problem. Confirmation bias is a problem because people won't listen to other people if they only want to believe the things that they already want to believe. In order to grow, you have to hear different sides of the story. But your social media is not setting you up to do that. It's only putting the things in there that you already have signed on to in some kind of way.
I saw that. And I saw that on my. It's actually on my queue, and you just prioritized it to being watched tonight. But I saw that, and I immediately thought of you. I was like, oh man, I wonder if PJ has seen or knows about this movie. Yeah, so you've answered. I'm gonna watch that tonight. That was on my queue for sure. It's that kind of stuff that's very fascinating to me. Like a friend once said, you want to. The only way you're not in the system already is if your parents didn't get you a birth certificate. You're already in.
That's true. That's true.
So it's great. All right, I'm gonna check that out for sure. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I would tell everybody here, this is a must-see film. You have to see this film because you have to understand what's at play. These are the top architects from all these major corporations that were telling you, yeah, we did this just for clicks to help make more money, to get ad revenue. What we didn't realize was how people are actually going to try to use it for even further things than that. In other words, they were saying anybody could jump on there. They created the tool that anybody could use. Man, so with a gun, you have to get registered, all this other stuff. Not with this. If you really want to take something down, you just go on social media and you can start making up a profile. They'll start building up a profile on you, and whatever you click on, they'll just keep feeding you that. So you understand why some people can be hardcore racist about what they believe and not understand. Well, if all your feed is showing you all day long, it's the same people who think the same way you do and where they're at. It's easy to get you to start mounting up, going to those places, and where you see these outside agitators, well, yeah, most of them are getting their information from the internet. Yeah. And they're telling them, here's what to buy, here's what to bring, here's what you need to be aware of when you get there. So everybody's at some point always going to be a little upset about something, but this will make you an activist and somebody who wants to jump to the spot quicker because it's all you're seeing all day long. So it's super. You guys have to see it, and at the same time, it's horrifying to know that these guys built this with such naivety that they just didn't believe people would ever use it like this.
Some of the scariest things I've ever seen on film. I was just joke is like have been documentaries. I said movie Blackfish still gets me. Like that's such an insane. I mean, it's like yeah, these are real. I think it's. I suspect Jason. I hope Jason Voorhees isn't real or Ghostface or the xenomorph alien. Mm-hmm. But they're like, nah, it's just people who just don't care or ill intent. So I'm gonna check that out tonight.
You'll like it. I'll give you one quote, and this quote will tell you everything you need to know about how intelligently this thing is put together. And the quote is, one of these folks, one of these architects that worked high up for Facebook to build the algorithm, he said, have you ever noticed that users when you see the term users, it only implies two things: drug users or users on the internet. He says, what a piece of company that you want to be involved in.
Addiction.
Yeah, I'm voting Voorhees Krueger 2024 because it can't be scarier than McGovern.
That's exactly
all right.
right.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is a film show. This is not a political show.
So with that, let's get to that topic because that's horrific. And the topic today is we're going to talk about the hidden gems of horror film. So again, these are the pleasant surprises. These are the films that you probably just sat down and next thing you know, you said, man, this is actually pretty good. I'd watch this again. I might even tell my friends about it. So we'll start with the film Samurais. Give us some of those horror gems.
All right. Let's start with the 2009 film called Orphan.
Orphan?
Yes. Have you seen this?
I did not.
Okay. It's directed by Jaume Collet Serra. He's a Spanish director from Barcelona. Stars Vera Farmiga, one of your favorites.
Yep.
Peter Sarsgaard. So already it's got a cast of two really great actors. And the star of the film, to me, was a young actress, Isabel Fuhrman. She plays the character of Esther. A family, the couple, they've already got two kids, a son and a daughter, but she's recently lost a baby. A lot of horror films, a lot of the good ones, have to do with loss. And again, this is loss. She's very distraught about it. So they decide they're going to adopt a child. So they go to this orphanage and they find this young girl just off by herself, and she's painting. very talented, very well spoken. She sounds Russian, and they take an interest in her, and they end up adopting her. And she's dressed in these old-fashioned clothes, and there's just something a little off about her. And then, of course, you just discover why. But the movie is one of those old-fashioned like Hitchcock thriller types.
Okay.
There's stuff going on, and yeah, you get into it, and you're invested in the characters, and you want to know what's going to happen next. And yeah, it's very effective performance by this actress, Isabel Fuhrman. I highly recommend it if you've never seen it. Next one, we'll talk about another 2009 film. 2009 was a great year for horror movies, I think. The House of the Devil, Ty West. This is one of those.
I love this film.
I haven't seen this one yet.
It's a retro horror. I mean, it looks like it was shot in the 70s. I mean, it's that type of gritty looking, shot in 35 millimeter type film, old fashioned clothing, and stuff. It's basically the story of a young college girl who needs some money, so she gets one of those little bulletin board things. Needs a babysitter. Calls a number, says, "Well, we need you to come and babysit for us, and we'll pay you this amount of money." And she goes, and it's this old creepy house, of course, some 2-story house. It looks like a Gothic mansion almost. And here comes Tom Noonan. Tom Noonan, of course, is from Manhunter. He was Buffalo Bill. Real tall actor, and he's very creepy in this film. Mary Warrenoff, who I'm sure Zach knows from a million films, she's in it as well. And then they reveal that she's really not going to be babysitting a child. She's just got to stay there and watch their mother, who's in her bedroom, but she's not. She's put down for the night. You don't have to worry about her. All you got to do is just be here. And the rest of the movie is just, it's very effective, atmospheric, and it's great.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, it unfolds perfectly because it hits, all the 1981 horror tropes.
Yes.
And because, there's no cell phones, there's no, this is the abandoned house in the woods, and, as the film slowly unfolds, this girl's in danger, and you hear and feel every second of it with her.
And
it's so good.
And it's a great climax too. So yeah, Jocelyn Donahue plays the lead, and she does this great scene where she's just messing around. She just puts her Walkman on, and she just starts dancing around the house. And it kind of reminded me of that movie. Was it Skinwalkers with Matt Chanamick, where she works in a movie theater and she's vacuuming the lobby and she's doing a dance with headphones. It kind of reminded me of that, and I think this might be kind of a tribute to that in a way.
And Ty West is such a good horror
The Innkeepers is another one.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Watch The Innkeeper; it'll give you chills.
Yeah, and it's short from a VHS. It's really good. So yeah, all of it.
And then my third one, 2016 film. I just happened to find this on streaming. I don't know if it was Amazon or Netflix, but it's called I Am Not a Serial Killer, directed by Billy O'Brien. I think he's done a few other kind of indie horrors. Stars Max Records and Christopher Lloyd. Of course, you know him as Doc from the Back to the Future movies. Max Records, he plays a young man in this, but he was a child actor who came out in that Where the Wild Things Are. That was him. But now he's in this movie. He's an adult. It's a very slow burn movie. It's kind of like one of your picks. Who picked The Autopsy of Jane Doe?
I did.
Okay, so it's kind of like that in a way, where he works in a mortuary, and the kid himself is very kind of disturbing, or he's kind of a disturbed kid. And there's a really effective scene where he gets bullied at school, and he finally stands up to the bully. I won't go into the scene, but it'll like make you go, oh yeah.
It's a great
there's and the reveal in this is like, oh my god, yeah. You won't expect it at all, and it's very effective. I enjoyed it a lot.
God, no one's brought the movie up in so long. That's a great. He's right. It's a great movie. I'd forgotten about it.
I'm not a serial killer.
I am not a serial killer.
I'm not a serial killer.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm not a
Yeah,
serial
right.
killer.
I'm just confirming it.
Do I have to start putting disclaimers at the top of this show, sir?
I might be.
One out of
but I
every
won't
4
tell.
film critics.
Right? There's 4 of us here. One of us has to be.
Somebody's about to go off. Somebody's about to do something crazy. Just keep watching, fans. We'll find out if we get to season 3 or not. You'll find out who really is a serial killer sitting right here. So let's go to the horror mic.
Okay, so obviously, like a friend once told me, I've forgotten more horror movies than most people have seen.
Yeah.
So these, I kind of looked at it before heading in. I realized, they have my favorite subgenre in horror movies is creature features. I love creature features, and they're so rare because they take money. And guess what horror movies you historically don't have? So in really no particular order, but I'm going to kind of recommend these all very heavily to pretty much anyone. The first is a Netflix original movie called The Ritual. It's about a group of, I believe, 4 friends. A friend had passed away, so they go to the woods and a kind of a memorial for him. And it starts raining, so it's like, hey, we'll cut. I think one of them gets hurt, and they decide we're going to cut through these thick woods to get back home faster. And they run afoul of a creature in the woods. Oh. Now this is someone. Now I want to stress this. I am actively someone who actively looks for horror movies and specifically creature features. The Ritual's creature is one of the most unique creature designs. This movie came out in 2017. To this day, and 10 years prior, I have never seen anything so unique.
CGI or practical?
Both.
Okay.
It is a.
Wow.
I think the best creatures mix the old and new elements.
Okay.
To even describe it, I can't even really describe it. It's very unique.
It's almost like a mythological creature.
Yeah, and I did some research. It is
gosh.
based on a Yordic god of Norse mythology. Phenomenal. It's one of those things you kind of have to see it.
Yes.
It's almost Lovecraftian and like
exactly.
Hard to describe. When you see it, you get it. Incredible. Acting's outstanding. Pacing's outstanding. And it gets to me the highest marks because it's such a unique creature. There's really not much like it.
Oh my gosh.
So it's coming from somebody who just all he does is watch these kind of movies. And I was like, yeah, touche, guys. Y'all knocked out of the park on this one. So that's a Netflix original. The next, this one hit on my radar because I'm a big Guillermo del Toro fan.
Okay.
And
Guillermo.
Okay, I butchered it. I apologize.
That's a running joke with us. Like every time Guillermo del Toro.
So this movie made the news because this is from Shudder. This is a Shudder original. You can buy it on Amazon or rent. I believe you can stream it.
Okay.
But Guillermo del Toro bought the rights to this. He saw it once and apparently said, okay, cool, I'm buying this and I'm planning on producing a remake for American audience. This is a Spanish language movie called Terrified. It came out in 2018. Shudder right now has exclusive streaming rights, but you can buy it on Blu-ray and stuff. I'm actually buying my Blu-ray next paycheck. And what it is, this is a supernatural thriller where it starts out with somebody is hearing banging outside of his house, and it is essentially a supernatural event spreading through this small neighborhood in, I believe, Mexico. And the creature and / ghost designs are masterclass, and the tension it builds is obscene. Now, you mentioned about sound.
Yes.
Yes. This one is the one that I think. Now, I'm not big into sound. I don't know how to teach it or what the cues are. But I would imagine if someone's like teaching sound editing and stuff, they're probably gonna show them Terrified. There are things where nothing is happening, and it's just silence except for key things are hiked up, breathing, creaking. Outstanding. So Terrified's another.
Is it Spanish language?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's Spanish language. That's what Del Toro's. The rumor is, now we know he bought the rights, but the rumor is he's going to produce it in English.
Okay.
For speaking honest, but that's what made it on my radar, and I'm very.
So this is the
glad.
original one. Okay, got it.
This is the original one.
All right.
So the new one hasn't even. Who knows when it'll come out now?
Yeah.
But Terrified, 2 thumbs up.
Terrified. Sounds good.
Yeah. If I end up getting it, I'll probably just let you borrow on.
All right.
The last on my list is a personal favorite. This is from 2014. This one is on a lot of streaming services. Most recently, I saw it on Hulu, and it's free on Tubi TUBI, but it's on Hulu. It's called Digging Up the Morrow, MARROW.
This is a kind of a horror western.
No, that is The Burrow.
The Bar.
The Burrow, which that movie's incredible.
Yeah. Digging up the marrow.
That's The Burrowers or the Burrow.
Yeah.
That's an amazing one.
Okay.
The Morrow is a movie about a filmmaker who's he's a real life film. He made the movie Frozen, which is about those kids stuck on the ski lift.
Yeah.
That was his.
Wow.
So he plays himself, and a man comes to him. This is an actor, Ray Weiss, who I see him in everything, and I just can't ever place him. Like, oh, that's that guy I see in everything.
Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks. Thank you.
RoboCop.
Yeah.
I know him most from RoboCop. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the he comes to him. He's like, there's an underground kind of world of monsters. Oh, and I should stress this is found film footage. So he's making a documentary about like monsters in film, and it ends up this Ray Rice tells him there are real monsters. They're underground, and
boy.
he has been studying them, kind of like a hunter. But not hunter would be a bad word. Like a film documentarian, like how they watch like big cats and stuff from a distance stuff. He's been watching like that, and this filmmaker decides, I want to make a film about these creatures, and I want to follow them and try to get as close to this Morrow as possible. Incredible. Ray Weiss kills it. He's almost too good in the movie. He stands out because all the other ones are just what makes this stand out is it's all people who have worked in or really are a part in the horror filmmaking industry.
Yeah.
So of course they're not the world's greatest actors, but I will also give toot their horn. They're not terrible at all. It's just that's how Ray Rice just kind of steamrolls them all, unfortunately. It's great, and this is another one that if you can get the DVD or Blu-ray, it comes with a documentary about the making of it, which is almost just as good about how they came with the creatures and practical. And Digging Up the Marrow and The Ritual, both of those movies, don't blink, because I've watched those movies multiple times, and every time they hide so many little things in the background and sound cues that there's just no way you catch it all. They're Easter eggs galore in those two. And Terrified's good too, but it's much more upfront about it.
Straightforward.
It's very straightforward. That's what I'm looking for. The Ritual and Digging Up the Marrow lend themselves to repeat viewings, and I recommend them to anybody.
I like those kind.
Okay. Yeah.
So, 2 thumbs way up on those, and those are ones I absolutely recommend.
All right.
Beautiful.
Y'all heard that, horror fans.
Love it.
You need to go look these titles up. Get your pen and paper out. Start writing these down because this is good, or just rewatch this again, whichever way you need to do it. K-Zach, how about you?
All right. All right. So the first one I chose got the big budget treatment, and it's easy to dismiss. It's 2000. God, what year? I never keep my notes in front of me. 2008's The Strangers. Now it's
great.
Okay, now look, this one's easy to dismiss because again, I'm not a lot of folks like Liv Tyler, Scott Speedman's kind of generic, et cetera, et cetera. But the really great thing about this film, again, like you were mentioning, is the sound. The sound is absolutely perfect in this. The tension builds off of that. I mean, basically, it's 2 people being hunted down by 3 serial killers who just appear out of nowhere, and it just builds and it builds and it builds, and the sound always gets you. Watch this with great speakers because it sucks you in. It is one of those where basically they get you as hard as possible with that sound.
Wow. That's good.
Like I said, and I want to put it into kind of the same thing as Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Not that I'm putting it on the same level,
right?
But the fact is that, you know, like I said, this is a film with not a whole lot of gore, but it's a whole lot of sound cues. It's a whole lot of stuff that you don't see that just gets you in this film. Because if you remember, Michael agreed with me that Texas Chainsaw Massacre has little to no gore in it, but it's all the sound and the tension and the fight and the chase that really gets you. So it's on that same level of just enjoyable horror that sucks you in with what you experience, not necessarily see. So
Love it. I've seen it, and I did remember it. It was noted.
It's funny that Strangers and Texas Chainsaw, people remember it as more violent than they are. And that's just how powerful those movies are.
Exactly.
But when it does get violent, it gets very mean. You know?
Yeah.
It's that
Yes.
type of mean horror.
It
where
sticks with you.
It just makes you cringe.
Yeah, it's that revulsion.
Yeah.
Because it's just like you would never want to be in this thing. The second one that I chose was a low budget flick that kind of got built on reputation alone, and that's Attack the Block.
Yo, John
Yes,
Boyega.
exactly.
Love
We get
that
the debut
movie.
of John Boyega. You get Jodie Whittaker from Doctor Who. It's a film that was better than it should have been. Because I mean, you have kids in the slums fighting aliens, and like I said, it's more horror than sci-fi because there's a shit ton of gore in this film.
Yeah.
And I mean, but I mean, the action is just well paced, and I mean, the dialogue is hard to understand. You gotta watch with subtitles because it's all Cockney doublespeak. But good God, is it just fun?
They
I
talk
mean,
about creature design.
I agree,
Creature design
man.
in that
That's
film.
one of my. I personally own that. I've bought it on DVD and Blu-ray. I love that film.
I did too.
And Boyega, I stand by. It's the movie that got him Star Wars.
Oh,
in my opinion.
yeah,
And,
absolutely.
Truly.
Without spoiling for sure, the final chase sequence to this day, I still like. That sticks with me. It's
The whole
sequence.
film is just it's really how wonderful it does with economics.
It's
because
good.
Yeah, I mean it's how CGI can get done really, really well.
See, I love that, and that's why I was also so disappointed in the Star Wars films because John Boyega, you could see the talent and what he has in that film, and then you turn him into a bumbling, stumbling idiot named Finn, who's supposed to be a trained stormtrooper, but he never showed any moxie. But in Attack the Block, you see all of that moxie,
he's a
and you
complete
go,
badass.
"Why didn't y'all let this guy be
Right.
And you mentioned character development.
Yeah.
That is, it borders on, it wouldn't be textbook, but it does good. This is a guy you don't like by the beginning, and by the end,
He's a thug, right?
yeah, he's
Yeah, everyone is a thug in this movie except for Jodie Whittaker and
Right.
Nurse.
Yeah,
But by the end, you're rooting for all these poor guys. Like you're just,
They basically save the world, right?
Yeah.
what? It's outstanding. I'm
And, the kills are great. The gore level's wonderful. And all of it's just really how you do low budget horror well.
yeah.
My third choice is one that's currently another Shudder exclusive, and it's I love the story behind this film. It's a Japanese film called One Cut of the Dead. I have to set this up because it really
Isn't it
does
a
bear with
comedy?
explaining. Yes, it's a horror comedy. So the first portion of the movie, the first act of the movie, is a zombie film that basically a Japanese crew is shooting a zombie film, and then real zombies come in and attack the film.
That way you can save makeup and
Right. But here's what's unique about this film is that the first half of it is 27 minutes long, and it's all one cut. This is not editing. This is not This is not the 1916 film, 1917. This is not Rope.
It's not Birdman.
It is all one cut, legitimately shot. Took 2 days and 6 takes to get it exactly right.
Wow.
And then people walked out of the film thinking, because they do the zombie film, then the credits roll and people walked out, but it's not over yet because you've still got 2 more acts in this. The second act is how we get to making a 27-minute one-cut film. And then the third of it is the making of the film. So you see everything that was on screen, how it's getting made. And the reason why I chose this one as a surprise is because horror films are specifically known for turns. This turns the other way because it's a horror film that becomes a family film. It's a horror film that digs into independent film. It's a horror film that turns you the other way. And it's something that you don't expect to happen. And it's so unexpected and so original. It's great. And if you get a chance to watch it on Shudder, watch it with the Joe Bob explanation because Joe Bob gives this great raw story about how to get independent film made. And I really wanted to bring this up in the fact that this film cost $27,000 to make, and it's made $27 million worldwide.
Damn.
Wow.
So it really just shows you the power of not only how to do horror well, but also, like I said, independent filmmaking, and it really does dig into the guts of independent filmmaking, and it's a wonderful family movie. So all of it together twists what horror really can be. And
Nice.
it's just unique and amazing to watch. And I've watched it 3 times now, and it's just a brilliant piece of cinema.
Amazing.
I'm gonna
amazing.
check it out. Yeah, that sounds amazing. I've
check that
not
out.
even heard of it. That's shocking. I haven't. It kind of sounded like you were talking about like Train to Busan at first.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm checking that one out for sure. Thank you.
It is out of nowhere, and it's just so good.
Yeah, well, so that sounds great. Let me give you the 3 that I actually had to pick from as well. And this was extremely hard to do as well, mainly because I haven't watched as many horror films as Horror Mike has for sure. But I've watched enough, so hopefully this will be good enough. I would like to start with a 2016 film called The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Love that movie.
I'll tell you why this is great. You have 2 actors in this, 2 great actors, Emile Hirsch and Brian Cox. They're a father and son coroner team that come across and find this body of this unidentified woman. And there is your whole movie as to what they think happened, what's going on, the external parts of the body that they're looking at, trying to determine what was cause of death versus the internal things that they're finding. And then everything else going on with the atmosphere. So as we talked about earlier, in a good horror film, if you set the atmosphere to where it's a little unnerving, creepy, and just present things by what you put in the shot, you can make people already start to figure out what might be happening, and then you can pull the cover off their eyes and do something different. So to me, I love the idea that they went ahead and took some real actors and put this in here and made them carry this role, because otherwise you probably don't buy it as much, and you need to see this relationship between this father and son coroner, and then of course the son's girlfriend that's in it, and the normal tension that comes with that. So I thought this was done well. It was directed by Andre Orvidal, I think is how you say that last name. And this is actually his first English film. He'd done many films in his own native tongue, but this was his first English language film. And this is what he gave us. He gave us The Autopsy of Jane Doe. I think it's definitely worth your time. Another film that I saw, and this one is because of Horror Mike, this would be It Follows, which came out in 2014. And Mike was telling me all about it. So the director is it's David Robert Mitchell, and he also wrote it, and he also had some production credits on this as well. So whenever you see that going on between someone writing the film, directing the film, and then carrying on, you get to see a single vision.
Right.
And I think with It Follows, you see the single vision of the young girl named Jay who just dreams about having this perfect relationship with this guy, and it turns out they get together, they do the wham bam thank you ma'am, and now we have this thing that you could say is an analogy for STDs.
Yeah.
But this thing, it follows. It doesn't care. It doesn't it doesn't try to go for logic.
Doesn't
It
give
just
up.
says, I'm coming after you. And I'm gonna get your ass. Your ass is got. That's
Yep.
the way this is. And
It's
so
outstanding.
it could
Yep.
come from any different angle. It could be people who you think are your friends that could be coming, all kinds of angles. So the idea that it follows being so nerve-wracking in the fact that you're trying to figure out, well, when am I ever safe? You're not.
That's another movie.
What do you think, Larry?
No, that's another movie like I was mentioning, The Ritual and Day of Tomorrow, where you can't blink. There is so much stuff in the screen behind, like there'll be people just walking in the background, and you are just the tension never stops.
Just a
because
shot of her in
premise.
the classroom, and then out the window, there's something going on.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
There's a
Shit.
moment like again, definitely no spoilers here, but they're standing outside of a college campus, and there's someone just happens to be walking in the same direction, and I'm like, is that what is that? I love that movie. I remember
pulls
it
you
being
in,
recommended to everyone.
Gets
Yeah.
you very involving.
Absolutely. And I don't really, I'm one of those folks who really hates jump scares because I think they're cheap and they're too easy. So I like it when you can actually use the real tension to do it. And this movie didn't give you a whole bunch of that. I like that they kind of held off on some of the extra jump scares. I think the ones that were there were placed because I think there's a place for good jump scares, but it just can't be every 5 seconds. It can't just be because you made the sound of the piano crank real loud at that one moment, or the black cat runs across the screen, or they stop because they're going underneath the ladder.
Yep.
It's like that's so cliche that you just get bored. You're going, this is 2020. You got to give me better than that. But in 2016, this is what they're thinking. And that analogy to all of it, which most horror movies before, remember, it was always the teens having sex, and it was almost kind of like, hey, look, this is what you have in a horror movie. And here it's like, don't do that because you might pass some on. It might try to kill you. So it's kind of anti-messaging in that way. Kazak, what did you think?
This is one that I haven't seen. This is one that's been on my radar for a while, so I really need to kind of get. I need to get into this one.
You'll love it.
It's one that I'm thinking of had to my Halloween list because this is one that's just been on my radar and just like I got to see this.
Zach, you'll love it.
Everyone recommends this one to me. So
Yes,
the reason they recommend it to you. It's a love letter to the era you love, the 80s.
Yeah,
it's an absolute love letter to like 80s horror and filmmaking.
Yeah,
that's why that doesn't surprise me one bit. Everyone would just talking to you for like 30 minutes. You'd be like, has this guy seen this? Follow us because it would be perfect for him.
Exactly.
Yeah, because this one, what's also notable is the soundtrack. The soundtrack is excellent in this one. So you will maybe you want to buy the soundtrack afterwards. So I call this a brilliant disaster piece. Okay. That's what this is. It's a brilliant disaster piece, right? And so my final choice here, I would say, really did me in. It's a film 2014, Last Shift. Let me just give you the synopsis of this film. If you haven't seen Last Shift, you need to. So here's a rookie police officer played by the girl from Walking Dead, Juliana. And she's assigned to have it's her first shift. The last time that they're in this one police house that they're about to move to another one because this one's been so contaminated. There's some things wrong with this particular place. And she's instructed not to leave until after the hazmat suit people have come in and helped kind of quarantine and clean up some of the stuff that's bad. Now, she doesn't know what's really in there, right? And so now what you get is this rookie officer in this place all by herself. She's just told one thing. If you need to call me, just go ahead and hit me up on my phone and I can, call me if you run into any emergencies, which should have told the young rookie something right away. If someone's telling you, call me in case there's an emergency, you should think. So you have this cult there, this bloodthirsty cult that's somewhere in there. This is part of this in here. And you start to have to wonder, what are these different noises? And so you see this film, it's shot from her perspective, which is brilliant because now you can play up to the sound stage of just the noise and what it would be like to be in a police officer. You have a gun, but you're in this place all by yourself and you know some bad stuff's happened there because they're moving out of this police station into another one. And so there's some stuff wrong, but you just didn't ask. You're just a rookie trying to do your first night in this place. And so what you get is some really nightmarish things that happen to her that you're trying to figure out, is this her imagination or is this really happening with these doors shutting, things moving and all this other stuff? And are people really talking to her or is she imagining it? Right? And so this, without going any further, this is what you got. And so this cult that's staying there is a bloodthirsty cult. So you're going to get the gore. You're going to get blood in this. But it's all premised around what do you do? So it's written by Anthony de Blasi. And one of his things that he said he wanted to do is he wanted to combine Nightmare on Elm Street and the documentary of Charles Manson. And so that's what you'll see is a bit of Nightmare on Elm Street, but a documentary, a realistic one, portrayal, if you will, of Manson and one of the cult leaders that's in this that happens to be not one to vacate the spot because of what's in there.
That's a great movie. Yeah, I loved. I remember seeing that and being blown away because your point is it's almost. I think almost the entirety of the movie. I think maybe like one or two shots are not from her POV.
Yeah,
like they never cut. Like if you don't see or hear anything, she does not. And I forget what it's called, but I just call it like point of view movies. But you don't get like expository dialogue from across the street of somebody talking about the building. It's all information she gets. You learn with her.
Yep.
You discover with her.
Yes.
Yes, that was something it's been years since I watched it, and I remember that still. I was like, oh wow, this is really well done. It's shocking just how well done. Like that's funny. All of your movies are immaculately well done. Like almost everyone I listen to, there's like a little rough around the edges on some of these movies. No, those are three well production. I don't know how big their budget was, but everyone. This is gonna sound weird. Everyone cared. You know what I mean? Like it feels like someone may not have gotten a top tier pay, but they probably did a top tier job because they cared about the art of it. And I think all of your movies you mentioned, everyone who showed up to work that day cared.
Well, and the other thing that's going on here, and this is just for every film fan, and Film Samurai already knows this, and maybe some of us will think of this. Yeah, makes sense. See this, the last shift, Also, it's the director who wrote it, who also helped produce it. So again, it's a singleness of vision, which is what you don't see in a lot of the movies that are coming out now,
Best
because
kind
it's
of film.
written by a committee, and that's why this film works in large chunks. Because you have these moments where it does horror movie things, but in large chunks you can see the vision and where it's going. It's because the writer is the director, is also part of the producer. And that's when you get that lineup together, you're going to get probably a sound movie if it's
Thai
focused.
West films are like that.
Very few films are good when they're written by committee, or written. Well, and there's too many cooks in the pots. Like I can think of maybe two, and like I said, barely. They're passable. Like
Right.
the best films are, again, why do you think Quentin Tarantino is so like those movies are his visions.
Yeah.
And I don't care for any of them, but I respect them. They're like, no, that's what you wanted to make. Your weird Uma Thurman foot fetish. That's right. Foot fetish. I mean, I respect it, man. You got millions of dollars together to do it. But jokes aside, I think I agree with y'all 100%. The best films have a vision. They have a message, but they're usually, it's singular. There could be a million people working on the thing, but as long as we have maybe a good word would be a leader, a lead to it, someone steering the ship. Full agreement. Like I said, man, there's not a single movie you mentioned tonight that I disagree with, except for Cut, which I have to see. That sounds so good. I've never heard of it, and that sounds outstanding.
Yes, sir. So this is what we're going to do, film fans. What did you think? You heard us talking about these different films. Have you seen some of these films? What are your comments to that? Or if you haven't seen these, go ahead and watch them and then tell us in the comments what you think. So at this stage, what we'll tell you is next week or 2 weeks from now, we will continue with the horror theme, but we're going to do something different. We're going to talk about the actual acting performances, which horror films usually aren't known for. So we're going to give you our list of some of the best acting performances and actors who were doing them and actresses who were doing them in a horror film, where if horror films would get the love in the Oscars, that they could actually get a performance nod for it. So we'll talk about that. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the shout outs. Who you shouting out to?
All right, let's shout out to my son Matt and my daughter Nicole, doing great down in the Austin area. My cousins out in California, Stella Joelle, and all my pals on Twitter who I love to interact with, get movie recommendations and hear their thoughts on films. It's great.
Brilliant.
The easy ones: my mom, my dad, friends and family, and a lot of my Keith's Comics friends and followers.
Jesus.
Yep, I know he watches some of these. So definitely those guys. Small list for me today. So
That's all right. Doesn't have to be big. And let's go to the man behind the camera.
All right, shout outs to everyone on DallasOnAir.com. We do want to, of course, thank Jedi and Kat who like us to keep this place running. And of course, we'll be bringing you in the next couple of months how to get involved with the station's toy drive, because we've got, of course, we do a very Spidey Christmas every year, so we'll be bringing you more information on that. We do also want to shout out our friends on our other shows, our alternating Sunday shows, the Rantcore Pit, Isle of Toys and Figments. Star Wars fans, stay tuned, because right after this, we're going to be bringing you a very special episode of the Rantcore Pit. Also, we have a lot of friends who are in our fan community who suffered a pretty deep loss earlier, just around the end of last week. Michael Cross, a great friend of ours in the con scene and of course the cosplay scene. A great man who recently passed away, and we do want to send his condolences to his friends, family, and of course any of the con folks who missed the guy. So blessing Michael Cross. And of course we do want to shout out Eddie Medina and Cole Houston, who of course you will be seeing very shortly here on the Rantcore Pit right after this.
That's great. And my final shout-outs, I'm going to give it to Brandy and Barry Austin, Sean Presley, Lauren Wiedauer, Tristan Frazier, Harry Thomas, Troy Ross, Michael Paul, Daniel Meza, Mad Mel, who always comments online. We love you for that.
Love Mad Mel.
Eddie Medina, Jedi Cole, Stephanie Crane, Scott Laney, and Sandra. That is it for us. We're going to send it out, and we'll see y'all next time.
Sayonara.
all right, sorry guys, y'all good one. Come on.
There we go.
Wash your hands!
Wear your mask.
Hey, mask.